Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Drew.
I'm Raina.
And we're two best friends who love movies.
Love them.
Thanks for the response to our first review for The Monkey. Tonight we are going to see what?
Last Breath.
And unlike last week when I had read the short story The Monkey and was a little bit more well-versed in the source material, you know a little bit more about what we're seeing today. So what is Last Breath?
So Last Breath is a film that is actually a dramatization of something real that happened. And an interesting factoid that isn't a spoiler going into it is that it was a documentary first. And the same producer, director who did the documentary is actually doing this film as well. So
the director of the documentary is directing this as well. Okay.
So even though we're going to have actors and everything, it's going to be what I feel will probably be a bit more accurate to what the real life thing must have been. So these are divers, and I want you to envision old-timey divers who are wearing those big helmets with sort of the cage in the front, and there's a hose coming off of it.
Oh, like the creatures in BioShock.
Yeah, like the video game.
The diving
BioShock.
suit. Okay, yeah.
So this is like a more modernized diving suit, but a lot of people don't realize that we actually do keep using these for deep sea repairs of things like internet cables, power cables, and more often than not, oil pipes.
Okay.
And these divers are down there usually doing repairs like welding or something. So not only do they have to be super qualified to be like a welder, they're having to do it underwater in these very specialized suits. And the type of diving is actually called saturation diving. And it is when a certain mixture of gas and oxygen is used to allow them to stay deeper longer. And it's being kind of pumped in through something called an umbilical cord. And it allows them to stay down really deep. So you think about this, there are men and women who do this all the time. I went and worked a convention once where they had a group repairing the helmets, and they would show you the damage sustained to some of the helmets. And there was a helmet there that was missing like a quarter of it.
Because of the pressure, or?
Just because of, it must have got banged. It got banged against something. Okay. And so the pressure, yes, contributes to how difficult this can be, and it kind of took off a piece of it. And even though it took off a chunk of it, there were still inches and inches of thickness before it would even perforate anything. So the person inside was totally fine, but these helmets are such a massive financial investment that they tend to repair them as opposed to replace them whenever possible, which kind of makes sense, but also kind of freaks me out. Like, do you want to be wearing someone's secondhand helmet at like 300 feet below the surface or something? So,
and do you know a little bit about underwater stuff?
I do. My original channel is I am a professional mermaid. I am sure you were totally expecting that with movie reviews. And because of that, I do free diving, where I hold my breath underwater for long periods of time. And the difficulty with being underwater for long periods of time, whether it's free diving, holding your breath, or scuba diving, is the buildup of carbon dioxide when you're underwater. So this is also something that these workers face. So the premise of this film that is based on a true story is an accident happens underwater while they're doing a repair, and don't really know everything about it yet. Don't want to spoil anything either, but this is just to kind of prime Drew. And one of the divers, his umbilical cord gets disconnected.
Oh.
Yeah, terrifying, right? We do have an all-star cast in it, and one of our Canadian hometown heroes, Simu is in it. Shang-Chi. We're waiting for that, buddy. Like, are you going to finish that? Number 2, you keep teasing it on the internet. We want it. But I think this is going to be a heart-racing film. I'm really looking forward to how they film the underwater stuff. I do believe that they actually did film some underwater content. Obviously not, 100 meters down.
Yeah.
It's probably a mix of filming underwater in a pool, CGI as well. I'm not 100% sure. I'm very curious to see.
Yeah. Now, is this horror like The Monkey was, or what genre is this?
I think this is drama, but leaning on the thriller side, because I think from the trailer it is going to play into a lot of people's universal fear of the deep dark ocean, claustrophobia, pitch darkness and maybe that childhood fear we all have of running out of oxygen, you know? So it is a drama, but I think it's more heavily leaning in the thriller end of drama.
So it's not going to be like The Monkey. There's not going to be like body parts flying around and blood and guts and stuff.
No, everything I think from what I've seen from the trailer is just going to be high stress stakes and scary moments. And we're not going to spoil it for you, but it is based on a true story. So you can look it up on Wikipedia. You can look up the original documentary. And I'm really curious just to see how the two compare. Maybe down the road we'll do like a comparison.
Yeah,
you know.
I haven't seen the documentary, so my review and reaction will be just purely how this works as a movie, as a piece of entertainment.
I feel we're going to be watching this movie like this a lot. Like, I think we're going to be pretty freaked out. The only criticism I've seen of this movie is that Scottish people are kind of saying, like, man, we were the heroes of this. We were the people in this, and you've kind of Americanized it, which I also think is funny because Simu is not American, and he's not even white.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of funny that people are like, you Americanized it. However, I do see the point that it's kind of like, you know, the Scots, they deserve their due. Yeah. So anyway, we're hanging out in the parking lot. We're about to go into Cineplex. It is snowing and raining. We got better lighting this time around, as you can tell. And I'm really just looking forward to this. We're going to get some popcorn. We're going to get some popcorn. All right, we'll see you back here shortly. Well, that was exactly what I expected in terms of watching the film like this.
That was intense.
It was very intense. Do you think I was accurate in describing it as a drama that leans into thriller?
Yeah, I expected it to be... When I think of a thriller, I don't think of exactly that, but the intensity of that.
Yeah, the intensity of it.
And the authenticity of the way that they shot it, and it seemed like the director knew the equipment that they were using and wanted to present it as true to life as possible. It didn't feel Hollywood in that respect. It didn't feel overly flashy.
Yeah, it didn't. It felt very raw, and it reminded me a little bit of some similar kind of disaster movies from the late 90s, early 2000s. I was thinking of like The Perfect Storm, and when they're on the boat and everything. And it was one of the things I noticed is that if you're if you're sensitive to motion sickness, it might trigger that for you, because first you are seeing shots of the ship going up and down and the people going up and down. But even when you don't have the ship or the ocean in the frame, they're giving you the feeling of what it's like being those characters, because the camera is still bobbing rhythmically up and down.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really smart little detail, but also I wasn't super prepared for it.
No, neither was I. As you know, my partner is Navy, and I went on a day sail once out in the warship, and I lasted maybe 20 minutes before the motion sickness started to hit me, and I started feeling a similar feeling once they got out in the boat in this movie, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah. So we're not going to spoil the film, but we do kind of have to, so you understand, like, there is an accident, lack of oxygen is involved. I feel like that's not spoiling it because it's in the trailer. It's also based on something that really happened in real life and a documentary.
Kind of the title of the movie.
Yeah, Last Breath, right? So, overall, Drew, like, I don't know that this is a movie you would have normally seen if I hadn't invited you to see this one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I might have. I like, Simu, and I like Woody Harrelson. I've never seen the other Finn Cole.
Finn Cole, yeah.
I think he's in that Peaky Blinders show that everyone was talking about. Yeah. But he's relatively new. I looked him up on Wikipedia a few minutes ago, and he hasn't been in a ton of movies, but he definitely left an impression. Yeah,
he was great. Honestly, I thought all of it was cast really well, and they felt like they had a lot of camaraderie, and then it made you feel like you were kind of a part of it. Like, I was rooting for the team kind of thing. Like, I felt really pulled into it quickly, and I think that is a sign of good direction. And also, just good acting if you can feel like you care about the characters that quickly.
Yeah.
Some movies try to do that, and
you don't care.
You don't care, and they give you tons and tons of backstory, and you still don't care. I cared.
Yeah.
I cared a lot.
Yeah, I definitely got a lump in the throat at a couple places.
Cinematography-wise, I was really impressed to see that, first of all, the actors did get in the dive suits, which was really cool. I'm not sure if they were accurate dive suits or if they were replicas. It seemed accurate to me, and the way that they moved and everything, it was all actually filmed underwater. It was back and forth between different camera types and ROVs, and that led to like authenticity, like it lended to the authenticity of it.
But it also was very claustrophobic, not only in terms of the very enclosed spaces that the people themselves are in, but then getting into the dive suit where you can just see their face through the mask. And I don't generally consider myself to be an overly claustrophobic person, but I found myself like feeling like I couldn't breathe at certain points because it was just so cramped.
There were a few times for me too where I started to get a little bit of chest pain.
Yeah.
And there were a few times where I was holding my breath and I had to tell myself, breathe, breathe, breathe. I wanted to explain a little bit of the science behind it because I do have this unique perspective from being a freediver. So I can hold my breath for 2.5 minutes, and I've trained to do that. The average person, if Drew were to just hold his breath here, you would do about 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'm not good at holding my breath at all. I'd probably struggle even to do that.
Yeah, so the average person can do 30 seconds. However, your body has enough residual oxygen moving through it, through your blood, that everybody, if push comes to shove, can hold their breath for 2 minutes. So when you're doing free diving training or rescue diving, there's usually a mandatory requirement that you have to meet a minute or a minute and a half minimum, because when we're learning to do that, we're learning to do it for ourselves, but then also to save somebody. So if you passed out underwater, I need to be able to hold my breath long enough to go get you and bring you back. And I was thinking about this. We're actually seeing more and more Hollywood people getting into this. Avatar, all the actors in Avatar 2 trained to hold their breath underwater. Sigourney Weaver was breaking records. Kate Winslet was breaking records. They broke Tom Cruise's record. Kind of stuff was cool. And they're doing all this. When they're training to do stuff like that, they're actually breathing pure oxygen. And we're talking about these divers being saturation divers. So their blood is being saturated with a mix of oxygen and gas that makes it so they're hyper-oxygenated.
Now, would people doing the job that these characters were doing, would they also take a bunch of pure oxygen to get themselves ready for it? Is that maybe the explanation as to why?
So that is why they're in these special capsules in the movie before they actually descend into the water.
They look like big Kinder Surprise eggs.
Big Kinder Surprise eggs. I don't know if the Americans will get that reference, but so it's like this big tinfoil Kinder Surprise.
We can put a picture up of.
And they're in it, and they have to be in it for a certain amount of days, breathing in this gas. They go down. They have an umbilical cord that it keeps them warm. It gives them oxygen. It gives them gas. And the reason they do this is to limit the amount of times they have to keep surfacing, because every time they have to go up and down, they risk decompression sickness, which is called the bends. And then they have to spend 4 days after they've been down in the water in a decompression chamber. We do have decompression chambers here where we live in our city for divers, for dive emergencies, and also it's also used in cancer treatment.
Have you been in one?
I've not been in one personally, but it is used for people who are recovering from radiation therapy, because not only is it good for people to get reacclimated after being underwater, it actually speeds up your healing, which is really interesting. So in the film, we know from the trailer, again, trying not to spoil here, but there's an accident and the diver goes without oxygen for a long time. So the world record is 25 minutes, and that is a person who's actually trained and they're breathing oxygen and they're in a secure environment. It's safe, temperature controlled, being watched, the whole 9 yards. However, throughout history, there have been a number of accidents where people have beaten the odds and survived without oxygen for 15, 20, 25 minutes. And science doesn't really have a good answer for why. So there was like a story of a little girl who fell through the ice and she was trapped under there before rescue services could get her out, and she was completely fine.
So this was true to life.
This was
the
true
detail,
to life.
They didn't embellish or expand. I was worried as we were watching. I was like, I wonder if this is really what happened, or if they're making it more extreme than it really was to Hollywoodify it.
It's really what happened, and the reason we don't know why it happens is because there's no safe way to study it. You don't want to induce people into a death state.
In case you accidentally kill them.
Yeah, without oxygen in cold water under tons of pressure, right? Yeah. But the working theory is that the body was so oxygenated, and the cold water and the pressure, it all just kind of combined to put the body into like a kind of stasis.
I will make one confession though, as it was going on, I was just the tiniest bit worried. I was like, oh no, is this going into like faith-based stuff?
Yeah.
Have we wandered into like a secret faith-based thing? But I was like, it's Dark Castle Pictures and Elevation Pictures, and they don't seem, it's not the company behind Sound of Freedom or anything like that. But I was a little worried. I was like, oh no, is it going? And it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. I'm not big on those movies either. I mean, no offense to people who enjoy them, but it's not my bag usually. It doesn't go into any kind of faith thing. They're not like experiencing it. They don't even say the word miracle.
You could interpret it that way if you were so inclined, though.
Yeah, if that's...
They just don't beat you over the head with it.
Yeah, they don't beat you over the head with it. If that is something that you kind of do get enjoyment out of movies from, and you're not bothered by that, and you find it uplifting and inspiring, that's good. What I think is crazy is that all these people who kind of survived this incident and all the staff involved, they all kept doing it! Yeah. Like, I would be out of that profession so fast. And like, Buddy went on to do it for 20 more years.
I did like the little bit of footage of the real people that they used. But I will, my one criticism that I will make though is Cole Finn, whatever his name is, the kid who played Chris, did not look like the real Chris.
Yeah, none of them really look like him except Woody.
And neither,
he actually did look like one of the guys.
And neither did Morag, Chris's fiance. Like, they show a little bit of footage of the two of them, and I was like, oh, they didn't even try to cast actors that look like these people. But they both did a good job. So they may not have looked like the real people, but they did a good job performance-wise.
So, Drew, at the beginning of this video, he asked me, like, how does a helmet get damaged? And there was a scene in the movie, and I was like, and that's how a helmet gets damaged. I have a little diver on a lanyard that I got from one of these conventions that I went to, and I actually keep it on my work lanyard. So I don't work in diving. That's just what I do on the side. I actually work in search and rescue training pilots, and the only criticism I had is they kept a lot of things true to life, and a lot of the things that the ship would have to do in this situation was very accurate. What drove me nuts is they basically just had the guys put the suits on and hop in the water, and I'm like, no, that's not how this would happen.
Oh, it's not.
Like, somebody would be there with like, I don't know if it would be a clipboard or an app or something, but there would be something, and they're going through meticulously through a checklist.
Well, Woody Harrelson seemed to be pretty meticulous in terms of like helping them put the suits on and stuff.
He did, but to me it was very casual. It was like, oh, don't forget your wrench. Like, do you have your flare?
It's not a documentary though. We don't need to see the detailed procedures of how to suit up for this.
But I did find it a little haphazard that they just they're in the suits in like 30 seconds, and they're just like, he is narrating a bit of what they're doing, but I was like, yeah, I don't think anybody else would care about that. But for me, working in this kind of field, like if we're getting a jumper ready to parachute out of the aircraft, like there is a whole safety person right with them going through a checklist of like, okay, because you need this to survive, so we need to make sure every single thing on this list is on you, is functioning. I need to check your helmet, I need to check this strap, I need to check this. And so they kind of like glossed over that, and that was the only criticism.
But you don't really need to see something like that in a movie that is, again, there's already a documentary on this. And sort of like, take Star Wars, for example. I'm sure there would be much more in getting the Millennium Falcon ready to launch than we actually see.
Yeah, sure. A good point. I think it just stuck me because this is my hyperfixation and my knowledge, and I'm blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. If you're in the field, and I'm sure people in the field are going to be watching this, you might pick up on little things like that.
Well, I mean, that can't be helped. Like, whenever I see anything like law related, like the the trial episode of the Hannibal TV series. I was like, that wouldn't happen, that wouldn't happen, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So when it's something you know about,
yeah, it's hard.
And when the new Silent Hill movie comes out, I will be insufferable in terms of the
Yeah,
comparisons.
he's a huge Silent Hill fan. There were 2 quotes in the film that I can share without spoiling, and I can't quote them verbatim, but I just thought they were very beautiful. One was kind of comparing being at the bottom of the ocean to being in space, like being an astronaut, and I really love that whole visualization because we know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the bottom of the ocean.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, and then the other thing I really liked is the wife in it. The soon-to-be wife, the fiance, she and her fiance, they send each other video recordings back and forth, and in one of them she says, you know, I know that you say you're going to be safe and everything, and I trust you, and you're in the diving bell, but the second you leave that bell, you're stealing seconds. And as somebody who does that themselves, I will go underwater for the photo, for the video, for the shot, whatever, trying to hit a new depth. You are stealing seconds.
Yeah.
And I feel like the strong dialogue, the strong story, the strong camaraderie, it directly comes from them being able to use a documentary as a source material.
Yeah.
They really got to the core of what this experience was like. Yeah, so overall for me, it's not my favorite movie in the whole world or anything like that, but in terms of ranking it for the quality and how good it is, I would put it up at like an 8.5 or a 9 if drama with thriller elements is kind of your thing. It's not the kind of movie I tend to see. I wanted to see it because of my special interest. So on my own personal top 10 of like movies from the year, I'm not sure I would rank it like super high.
Yeah, well, I mean, the year's early on. Who knows? We might look back and be like, oh, that actually was one of the better things.
Yeah, sure. So, but it's hard for me to like rank it the same way, you know, when we're talking about The Monkey and I'm giving it that stuff. Like I really love horror, I really love comedy and stuff like that. I don't normally see dramas, but in terms of how dramas go, like I think it's really good. And I was kind of bummed that there weren't more people in the audience. However, we are seeing it an early showing.
And also it is storming. I don't know if the rain will pick up in the audio of this, but we are being pelted by rain as we speak.
Yeah, so anyway, I'm hoping that it's going to get more people to see it because it is, and it's worth seeing on the big screen in my opinion.
Yeah.
What about you? What was your takeaway?
I wouldn't go up to a 9. I reserve my 9 and 10s for the movies that I get like really passionate about. But I'm between 8 and 8.5.
Yeah. I did tear up at the end. Yeah.
I got a lump in my throat a couple times.
Yeah, and I did really feel it was quite immersive. And like I said, I think it's worth seeing in theater. The way it's filmed, it's a big movie. It should be big.
Oh, some beautifully shot, like before they go out in the water, to some beautiful establishing shots of Scotland, which was very nice.
Really made me want to travel to Scotland.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, that is our thoughts on Last Breath. You can please like and subscribe. Let us know if you're going to see this movie in the comments, or do you have any questions about the accident? Have you seen the documentary? Are you a fan of any of these actors? Drew and I are going to keep trying to do these videos as we go to see movies, and you can check out our community tab on YouTube as well, where I've just been posting fun photos of when we see movies. I might post some polls about upcoming movies we're going to see. And
yeah, we're between Seven Veils and Mickey 17. Am I getting the title of that right?
Yeah.
Before we end the review, though, can I just take a moment? There was a trailer that they showed before this movie, The Legend of Ochi. I've never heard of this movie before. It gave me total Wild Robot vibes. I got feeling emotional. You actually got emotional from the trailer.
From the trailer.
And that happened for the Wild Robot. So I am definitely keeping an eye out for The Legend of Ochi now that I've seen.
And it's A24.
A24, Willem Dafoe looks amazing. Can't wait.
Finn Wolfhard, yeah. All right, well, this is Drew and Raina signing off.
Bye.
See you at the movies.